Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you today with Wolverine issue 44. Now, we've gone over 43. It was a while back. So again, I said this with the Batman review. It's nice to when I pick it up, I go, oh, hell, we reviewed that last issue. So cool, we can move forward without a whole lot of, what do you call it? That word that does stuff. The moment's lost. Anyway, with that said, I love this era of Wolverine because it was, to me, well, I look back now, and it's just very experimental, in my opinion. And what I mean by that is last issue, Peter David, I believe it was Peter David. Let me double check that. Yeah, Peter David. Anyway, it's just a lot of experimental stuff. Like they teased at Sabretooth being Wolverine's father, which was Chris Claremont's original idea, hence why Sabretooth always knew where he was on his birthday and proved that he could just beat the crap out of him anytime he wanted. So even though the Knucklehead, for the most part, was established first by Len Wein, who created him, Chris Claremont, and John Byrne, and then through the years, and then at this point, Peter David taking it over, and I like that he kind of looked over Claremont's notes, and good God, look at that artwork. Oh, I miss this quality of art in comic books. I mean, just look at Logan sitting there, very introspect. Oh, man, that's just love it. Anyway, these last two issues were really weird. The last one, again, teased at Sabretooth being Wolverine's father, and then all of a sudden it was just this fight at the zoo with this random serial killer. And now he's having these visions of these like ghost babies saying, Wolverine, help me, save us. And it's a great way to start the book because you're thinking, what the hell is going on? But I love the very much like the gradient and then the lines just very screams 90s, which the print date on this was August 1991. So yeah, that makes sense. But anyway, conceived by Peter David, writer Larry Stroman, penciler Al Milgrom, inker Pat Brosseau. Steve Buccellotto was the colorist, Bob Harris was the editor, and Tom DeFalco, editor-in-chief. So got a big, all-star cast on this book, and I love that Peter David and Larry Stroman were on this because they were the ones that reinvigorated X-Factor at issue 71 with Havoc and Strong Guy and all them. But just look at this psychedelic artwork of these babies falling into this gator or like looking mouths underwater in a boat. So in this, you kind of get this whole concept of what this book's going to be. He goes, pain again and again and again. Babies screaming in my head, huge flashing teeth and water and images of a ship. My lungs fill with liquid and I can't even scream. And then I wake up. Every night for a week, the same thing. Except there's one little difference this time. This time I'm waking up in a cramped, dank cabin. Because 3 days ago, I just had to walk past the harbor and see a cruise ship preparing to set sail. So he decides to take to the high seas to at least kind of get an idea of what's haunting him in his mind. And so he's just walking the boardwalk here. And one thing I've always liked about Peter David is he can keep a book serious, but juggle the humor before something happens. So we get these ladies, she goes, you're kidding me, you can't name him Sherlock, he'll never live it down. I think it's a great name. I'm naming mine something simple. Life's difficult enough. And while this is happening, while we're kind of reading this background dialogue that we don't really think is going to be worth a damn, we see Logan having these paranoid moments. This very much foreshadowing of what is to come. Let's ask an impartial observer. Excuse me, sir. Yeah. What do you think of the name Sherlock for a boy? Depends. You got something against boys. See? And it starts to lead up. It ties the characters together. So there for a minute, you're just thinking that David's just one-offing some dialogue. It pulls Logan in and everything starts to tie together. That's a great example, in my opinion, of excellent story writing. How you bring these two randomly separate individuals together all of a sudden. You passengers, you don't look it. None of us do, yet all of us are. Or preggers, passengers. Preggers. That's more Logan's speed. We all have the same... Oh, God. I hate trying to say names like this. Make fun of me down in the comments. I'm just going to brutalize it. Obstetricianist? Sure. That's where we met. We all had vacation at the same time together and figured we should take it while we still look good in bathing suits, because they're all single ladies that decided to be artificially inseminated. So the story, Logan's visions, everything starts to build together. He says, no wedding rings. That goes along with not being married. 3 single moms-to-be with, the modern world. Tell us about it. Well, take care, get tanned. Actually, I think I'll get wet. You ladies want to join me? And as this lady goes to, what's her name? Rachel. She goes to dive in the water. The tone of the book changes. We see this red flash over Logan's eyes. And then screaming. Diving in the water, and we don't get to see our villain in full character. We just get silhouettes. Which, if you go back to traditional like horror stories, whether it be like monster stories or just suspense, the less the better. So the less that you actually see the monster in full light. That's why the original, like for example, the original Alien to Aliens was scarier, is because of the mood, as where Cameron did set a tone, but it was more action, as where the Nostromo had the dark cave haunted house look. So two different tones work together. Same here. Now, one of the girls that was pregnant dies. Her throat slashed, her friends sobbing and crying, and she's like, someone give her CPR, and Logan just goes, CPR doesn't do much good when your jugular's been severed. So he dons his uniform, kind of understanding where his visions are coming from now. Trying to keep the girls safe. And to a degree, when I was reading this, wow, those are some lips, my goodness. This sort of reminded me of, what part was it? Friday the 13th, part 5, where it's supposed to be Jason Takes Manhattan, but it was more like Jason Takes a Cruise. The way that the ladies are trying to save them, keep themselves safe in their cabins, but something keeps snatching all of these pregnant women up, kind of gave me that, like a mixture of Friday the 13th meets Nightmare on Elm Street. And again, I love how, I know a lot of this was done for the comic book code, but just kind of seeing a victim hanging in the shadows with just like that red accent, to me just gives more roar than actually seeing it. And that kind of goes the same for, I think it was Spawn number 4, the ice cream guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But when Spawn stabs him to death with all the ice cream cones, and you see part of the gore, but it's still shrouded in shadow. I just feel like that gives more effect, because it's more the less you see, the better. And that just kind of is the same here, where you don't really ever see the monster. You don't really get to know what it is that Logan's fighting. And that's what drives you nuts about this story. Even though, to a degree, there's a bittersweet ending. And even though you don't get to see the monster, I love these semi-big splash pages as Logan's trying to save these ladies. It just adds to the fun of the comic. And it just allows for the story to really go. I mean, yeah, David adds some word titles here and there, but look how it doesn't impede on this gorgeous artwork as Logan fights this monster, trying to save these children. And yeah, it was a little corny, especially the way that it ends. I guess what I could say when I said that this gives me Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street vibes is it reminds me of the whole boat and the monster killing the ladies, reminds me of Friday the 13th part 5. And then all the babies trying to be killed by this. And literally, when you look at the Wikipedia for this issue, the antagonist, I believe, it was just called Baby Killer. So it wasn't like another villain that you'd ever see again. But it's just called Baby Killer. And it's just weird. But anyway, back to what I was talking about, because my brain's going everywhere, is this also reminds me of Nightmare on Elm Street part, was it 5 that was the Dream Child? And maybe that was around the time that these started coming out. Maybe that's what David was going for. But that's definitely the vibes I get from this book. And this kind of coincides with what I was talking about back with Batman 399, where these older issues, like this was a standalone issue. It was fun. Yeah, you kind of get a little bit of vibes from the last issue, but that's it. You know, you get Wolverine fighting this monster, being sort of the hero, and then it actually says the end. Rather than where a lot of modern books, it'll be say like to be continued in this book, and then this book, followed by this big event, spinning off into this book, that book, this book, that book. And then by the time that whole shenanigans done, there's like 66 books you have to read to understand one freaking idea. David did it all in one issue. As we've said before, your first comic, like every comic book should be like a first-time reader should be their first comic. I'd have to say, hey, this Wolverine character is interesting. I like the claws. And then go back and read some of the more long-running arcs and whatnot. And this is one of those that you definitely want to read in your collection for that reason. It's fun. Plus, hell, all-star cast of Peter David, Larry Stroman. Just great stuff from this era. So if you've enjoyed what you've seen, please first and foremost support your local comic shop or wherever it is you like to get your action figures and comics, and grab a copy. If you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate if you taking a minute to hit that little adamantium bell. Next, subscribe. That way we can upload content. You guys get notified. Come to the channel. And we love talking with you all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, I hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading and happy hunting. True believers.